Welcome everyone to our Alfasoft online demo day, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Torgrim Sandvold, and I'm the product manager for statistics and data analysis tool here in Norway. In the next webinar, we will be presenting NVivo, Unlock Insights with NVivo in Qualitative and Mixed Methods Data. And it's given by our very own Dr. Marit Wiskewski. She's cited in our journal. With that, I will hand over the screen to you, Marit, so you can get started with your presentation. Just a second here.
Yes, hi everyone. Let me just get my PowerPoint presentation started. Okay.
There you go. I can see your screen perfectly.
All
Marit.
right.
Good luck with your presentation.
Thank you. But today I want to talk about NVivo and how you can use it in your qualitative and mixed methods analysis. And I will just give you an overview of how the NVivo interface looks like, where you find things, what types of data you can import into NVivo, and how you work with them. So we will look at some different data types, like interviews, surveys, or media files. So you might be wondering, maybe you came from the EndNote presentation and you might be wondering, well, is this webinar even a fit for me, or what is NVivo all about? NVivo is a software for qualitative data analysis. So if you are a researcher or work at a research institute, a doctoral student, or a data analyst, if you will, and you work with qualitative data, this could be text-based data like interviews, it could be mixed data like a survey with open-ended questions. If you have pictures or audio or video files that you need to analyze in your daily work, then NVivo might be a great tool for you in order to help you sort through all the information that you have, categorize it, and explore and later explain it to others as well. And I will give you an overview of the key items that we have in NVivo that help you when you analyze qualitative data. So we will talk about things like codes and cases that you find in NVivo. And so NVivo is a desktop software, and this is the part that we will be looking into today. But just
Marit,
so that you are, yes?
Can I just, sorry, I forgot to mention also that we have a poll, so whenever you would like to run the poll, which version of EndNote the attendees are using, I can launch it for you. So.
No worry, it's fine. Thank you. But speaking of versions, I will be using the newest version of NVivo today. And when you use the newest version of NVivo, there are some modules that you can add to the product if you need them. One of the modules that is available for everyone is NVivo Transcription. So if you're working with audio and video files from interviews and you need to transcribe them, there's different options that you have, but one of the ways that you can get your interviews transcribed is by using the NVivo transcription module, which is a cloud-based solution where you can upload your files. It's available in 28 languages, and it will auto-transcribe your interviews or your files, and then you can edit them and bring them back into NVivo for further analysis. Also, when you work in a team, there are different solutions. So maybe sometimes you don't just work on your project just yourself, but you want to collaborate with different team members. There's different ways of how you can do that. But if you use the newest version of NVivo, you can have an extra module, which is the NVivo Collaboration Cloud, which again is a cloud-based solution that helps you exchange your NVivo project file in a secure environment, and you will be able to see, which version has been loaded last by the team manager and who has downloaded it, etc. So it's a bit more transparent than just sending around your project file by email or USB sticks. Basically, in NVivo, we have three big things that we want to do. We want to import our data, then we want to start organizing and explore our data. And obviously, I will show this to you in the software itself. Just to give you an overview, that NVivo supports a wide range of data. So, as I said, starting from a simple text document like Word documents or maybe PDFs to if you work with a survey, you can import it directly from Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey, or you can also import it from an Excel file. You can also integrate your literature in NVivo, and you can import from Citavi, which doesn't have its own icon here, but obviously you can import from Citavi, Mendeley, Referx, EndNote, or Zotero. And you can also bring in your social media data. But I would say I will switch to NVivo now. So this is how the NVivo start screen looks like when you use the newest version of NVivo. What you will notice is that I have this part where it says account. I'm currently not logged in. So just to give you an idea, if you get your new license or if someone assigns a license for you for the newest version of NVivo, you have to sign into your account once to activate NVivo on your computer, but then you can basically stay not logged in, because it's not necessary to be logged in all the time when you work on the desktop version with NVivo. The only reason why you might want to log in again into the correct account is maybe if you want to access, as you can see here on the left side, some projects that someone shared with you via Collaboration Cloud. And this is when you would want to log in, or also if you want to send files to NVivo Transcription. I will start the sample project now, which is a project that is always available for you. So if you are new to NVivo and want to have a look at what you can do in NVivo and what the options are and how a finished project can look like, I always recommend opening the sample project. So essentially, the sample project contains a lot of different data types, which makes it quite interesting. And it's based on a real research project. So it's not only fabricated data. So what we see here, let's maybe start from the beginning. The first thing on the left side here is our import area. This is where we can create folders and also import our files. As you can see, we have a bunch of folders already created that we will look in together. But if you want to start your own folder, the easiest way always in NVivo, my opinion, is to just try a right click. So if you do a right click here and where it says files, you can see you can easily create a new folder or even import files from here. So let's see, we have a folder, for instance, called interviews. If I open that one, I see that I have different types of files here. I have some regular text documents, interviews. So this one, for instance, is called Robert, so I could read through it here. But I also have audio and video files. This one, Betty and Paul. Video files look, of course, different than regular text files. So when you work with media files, you will always get like the timeline here. If you create a transcript or have imported a transcript, it will be visible here. And if it's a video, obviously you will also see a little window with the actual video playing. What else do we have in this sample project? We also, for instance, have a survey, which I can open now. Maybe I need a little bit more space. So with surveys, you will always have the closed-ended questions as well as the open-ended questions that you can review. Before we start looking into the data and what we have here, I just want to make you aware that if you want to import different types of data, there's an import tab up here. And in the import tab, it again gives you a good overview of what types of data you are able to import. If it's just, I would say, simple types of data like PDF files and text files, you can just do a right click and import the items. But if your data is a bit more complex, like a survey, or maybe you have captured something on the internet, I always recommend going from the import tab, and this will help you to find the right box of what you are trying to import, and this will always help you because will be a little wizard that walks you through the necessary steps of to import everything correctly. So as you can see, you could, for instance, import a project into another. You might be wondering why would I want to do that? Well, if you work in a team, importing one project into another is a way of merging the work of team members. So here you can select the project that you want to import, and then the work of two team members will be merged. The next thing that we find here is Encapture. Encapture is an add-on or an extension that you can install in Chrome, and it helps you to capture web-based data. So you can, for instance, capture web pages as PDFs, or you can even capture data sets from Twitter. Let me just check. Yeah, so I have some. I have captured things previously. So if you have captured something prior to opening NVivo, this will be visible here as a list, and then you can see what exactly it is that you want to import. By default, it always shows you everything that all captures that have not previously been imported. As you can see, they are just mainly web pages from our own website. It always comes with the URL and also some information on when exactly it has been imported, which can be quite crucial because we know that internet content changes really, really fast. So if you're capturing web pages, I don't know, maybe you're researching on organizations or companies and you want to capture their web pages, you will always have the information on when it was captured. What else do we have? Yeah, surveys, bibliography, and it will always come with the information of which file format you would need to import. Okay. But let's have a look into the data that I've already opened here. So let's maybe start with the file called Robert. As I said, this is an interview with a person called Robert in this interview. And no matter what qualitative method you might be using to analyze your data, you will be reading a lot. This is something that I guess all qualitative methods have in common. We need to familiarize ourselves with our data. We need to read a lot. And there are a few things that might be helpful for you while reading through your data. And one thing, for instance, that you might see here is that in NVivo you can create links, hyperlinks. So Robert here, let me maybe zoom in for those who have a smaller screen. Robert here is talking about North Carolina beach plan, and it's possible to create links and also from here to open this specific hyperlink to actually review this North Carolina beach plan that he's talking about. There's also other types of links like here. If we see a pink highlight somewhere in our NVivo project, this means that we have created a See Also link. And See Also links help you to link parts of your project together. So if let me just open this here. As you can see, this piece of text links to a picture that is also here in this project, and I can actually open it from here. So he talks about a certain area, core banks, shekel banks, and the picture here has been linked to this piece of text, and it can also be opened from here. So you see everything can be integrated. Another thing that you can do while reading through your data is that could be helpful is that you start with annotations. So if you find something that's interesting to you, let me just see, and you want to take a note, you can just simply select a piece of text here. You maybe take this part. Do a right click and choose new annotation, and then make whatever comment you think is useful. And again, annotations you will be visible with this little speech bubble icon, and also with the blue highlight. Okay. Another way that you and we are still in the phase of familiarizing ourselves with the data, maybe just to show you, if we go back to this picture here, there are even more see also links and even more hyperlinks. This one, I hope that you can see this. Let me zoom in. With pictures, this hyperlink is connected to exactly this small piece of the text where you see the lighthouse, and it actually is a link that leads you to, obviously, the lighthouse and some information on it. So it can really add more information here and there and link things together. Let's go back to the list of interviews that we have. So another way of familiarizing yourself with your data, also taking notes while you're reading, is Memos. So if we look at this list here, we find, again, a little link symbol next to Ken's document. And this actually means that there is a memo attached to Ken's document. I can open the memo from here and see what it says. So this memo in particular was more of a maybe a descriptive memo, where they write about that there were some while they were doing the interviews, they had some interruptions with barking dogs, actually, and they reflect on that a little bit. But mainly, basically, memos could be anything that is helpful for you to write about your data. It could be just background information like here. But you can also use memos to already start analyzing and summarizing your data. And memos can be linked to documents or codes, or they can be free floating. So if I go on the left side here where it says notes, this is actually where I find everything that I've been talking about so far. So I will find all see also links that I have in this project, all annotations that have been attached to different parts of data, and also all my memos. So here are different memos and even folders for different types of memos. So this is what you can do to start writing about your data. Okay. I think the next thing that I want to show you is codes and how we work with them. So what are codes? We find the codes here in where it says organize. Codes are basically categories, themes, concepts, anything that is relevant for us to properly analyze our data. Your codes can look very differently depending on, of course, what type of data you have, your research question, your method of analysis. What we see here in this sample project is mainly a thematic coding approach. So we have codes that are called infrastructure. And if I open this code, what I would expect to see is comments or quotes on infrastructure that have been coded. Or community change, same idea. So let's open this code, community change here. We see that there are 18 files and 62 references. This basically means we have coding in 18 different sources. So in 18 different sources, some snippets of material have been coded with this code, and this comes up to a total of 62 references that we can now review. So let me just open the community change code, and let's see what we have here. Make this a little bit bigger. So basically what coding means is that if you find a piece of text that is interesting or relevant and falls into this category, you can code it. And I will also show you a few coding techniques. We are kind of starting from the part where the coding is already done. So here I see some quotes from different texts. What's also interesting is that you can review the different data types separately. If we go to the right side here, I can click on the tab that says text, and I will find all the different texts that have coding. I can click on where it says picture, and I will find all the different pictures that have coding to this code. And as you can see with pictures, you can either code the whole picture or the text that describes the picture, or in this case, only part of the picture. So it's very interesting. Same for audio files. If you work with audio and video files, you can either create a transcript and code on the transcript. Here in this transcript, we see a blue highlight, which means it has an annotation. Or you can code directly on the audio file. This works very well in Windows, not so great in Mac. I have to say that it works well in Windows. And what happens is if you review your coding and switch to the audio tab here and then click play, it will jump exactly to the part that is coded with this code. So it will not play all of it, just the snippet that you have actually coded with the code community change. Okay, let's stop this. So let's maybe, I think we can close this. Let's maybe look at how it would be possible to code at all. I mean, we now have looked at how we can review it, but you still are maybe wondering, how do I code? So let's just go back to Robert's interview. Okay, there are different ways of how you can start your coding. If you have a list of codes already created, maybe deductively, you just know that these are the topics or concepts that will be relevant for you. You can code just by drag and drop coding. And there's, in the new NVivo, there's actually two ways of doing that. Either you have the list of codes open here. So let me just show you. You select the piece of text that you want to code and just drag and drop it into the code that you think is fitting, which is infrastructure, for instance. Or you can also switch on the code panel, which would basically do the same thing. So on the right side, you would then get a list of all the codes that you have. Let me just move my screen a bit so that we can actually see. And again, you could take the piece of text that you think you want to code and then just drag and drop it into the code that you think is the correct one. Okay. There's also other ways of how you can code. Drag and dropping, of course, is very fast, but if you have a longer list of codes, or if we look at this one here, we have a long list of codes with a lot of subcodes, drag and drop might not be the best way to do it. So in that case, I would always recommend just doing the right-click coding. So you can just select the piece of text again, do a right-click, and the first option, or the second option is code to recent codes, which is great because this can speed up the process. We can just code to the codes that we have been coding with so far. Or we click on code selection, and this will again show us the list of codes that have been created previously. But it actually allows us also to code to several codes at the same time. So let's pretend if this piece of text is about community change and infrastructure, I'll just hold my control key and can code to 2 or even more codes at the same time, and just click on code to multiple items. Of course, you can also create codes as you go. So if you want to create codes inductively from the text, that of course is also possible. So if you try to code something and you don't find a code that is fitting of the ones that you have created so far, what you can do is, again, just to select a piece of text, do a right click, code selection, and then here you can create a new top level code, or also already organize it in the structure here. In order to see or review what's coded in a document, the easiest way is to switch on the coding stripes. The coding stripes you can switch on either for most coding, least coding, recently coded, or also just for selected items. Let's see if this shows us something. Yes, so here, for instance, we see just the coding that I did so far for community change, infrastructure, etc. Okay, so this is coding and coding techniques. All of this also works in the other types of data, of course. So if I, maybe go back to my video file here that I have opened in the beginning, as we've seen when we reviewed the code, you can either code directly here on the audio. Obviously, you would play it first and make sure that this part is about, let's say, community change. If yes, you can just mark it, do a right click, and you get exactly the same options as we've seen before with the right click or drag and drop. And additionally, or maybe you make a decision to just code in the transcript or just code in the audio, but yeah, you can also code in the transcript itself, of course, and again, you will get the same options. For surveys, it's quite interesting. Let's have a look at our survey here. In surveys, we have a lot of information, and you see some fields here that have a gray background and some fields that have a white background. Now, with surveys, when you import them, all your closed-ended questions will be created as something that is called attributes in NVivo, and I will get to that in a second. But all the open-ended questions will be created as codes. So all the open-ended questions also have a white background, which means that you can actually code in these. You cannot edit them, but you can code, can create annotations, and yeah, essentially code to any code that is relevant for you. Okay, I will look at the survey in a little bit, but I wanted to show you a few more things. So we are still, let's say, we are still in this phase of exploring our data a little bit, right? We familiarized ourselves, we started coding, and maybe you think, I wonder how a certain word or phrase was used in my data and where exactly I find it. This is a very common way to approach your data, to just look for keywords. Again, it depends a little bit on the method that you are doing or using. But if you have a more thematic approach or maybe content analysis like here, like looking for infrastructure, it would be a very obvious approach to say, okay, let's just do a text search to see where the word infrastructure pops up. And this is what I want to do now, just with a different word. So I will go to my Explore tab, click on text search, and I will do a text search for the word development. Okay. The default of these text search queries is always that we will look in all files and externals for the word development. If I do that, this will mean that it will look for the word development in all my interviews, all the open-ended questions from the survey, all descriptions that I have in my pictures, and all the transcript that I have for my audio and video files. So it will look everywhere, okay? Everywhere where I have text. So I will run the query, and I will get a list of all the documents where we have hits. I can also sort this by number of references. I see we have a lot about development in the survey. Also, there's another data set that came from Twitter, and so on. What's interesting with the text search is you have different options to review it. So one is to actually go to the references to see the word in context and how it was used. So here we always get a little preview of a few words before and after that show us which sentences or how it was used, development that would impact the environment, and so on and so forth. Another thing that you can do is to create a word tree. Again, this shows you how the word was used basically in context, and it will create different branches depending on words that have been used frequently before and after. So impact development, or density development, or coastal development. And if you find a branch where you think, that's actually interesting, I want to see more about what exactly they said about coastal development, you can just simply double click on the branch and it will start a new text search query for you that looks for the phrase instead of just this individual word. Again, you get the preview of the references, and you can also again review the word tree, and then maybe it's not that busy because it's just a snippet of it. These word trees obviously can be exported. If I just do a right click, I can export the word tree in different picture formats here. Okay. Other things that you can do with the text search is you can play a little bit, depending on your context language, you can play a little bit with exact matches or stem word synonyms. I would just try this out. If your text content language is English or German, this will work very well. If your text content language is none of the supported text content languages, but maybe Swedish or Norwegian, you still have the option to use any of the wildcards that you see here. So for instance, I could add this star sign, this asterisk, and this would help me to look for not only development, but maybe developments, developmental, or something, or that's a sort of thing. Another thing that you might want to do is, instead of looking everywhere in all of your data, remember right now, we looked for the word development in all the sources that I have. Maybe you are thinking, no, actually, I just want to look how the word development has been used in a specific folder where I keep specific text. So I could click on selected folders here. And maybe I just want to see how the word development appears in the news articles, the PDFs that I have imported. So I click OK and run the query again, which will, of course, refresh the results. And then apparently it's just one more. It's just one PDF that contains the word instead of all of them. OK. Let me just look at my list of things that I want to show you. Yes, so that was the text search query. Obviously, under the Explore tab, there are more things that you can use to query your data and to visualize your data. Speaking of visualizations, I think I want to show you another thing here. If we go back to our community change code that I have. That we have been reviewing, or I have been reviewing. You could also use a few visualizations just to, get a different view on the code. So on almost any element that you find in NVivo, you can just simply do a right click and go to where it says visualize. Whoops. And this will give you different options. So one thing that pops up here is a word cloud. A word cloud is basically a word frequency query. Again, you can run it either for all of your documents or all of your files, or as you can see, you could also create a word cloud from a code that already contains coded references. But what I want to show you is chart code coding, which essentially is a chart that shows you the 20 most coded documents and how much of them have been coded. So if we look at the first 4 bars, they are really big. And this is because these are pictures, and the entire picture has been coded with the community change code. So if I double click on the bar, it will actually take me to the picture that has been coded to community change, and it will actually highlight, you know, that the whole thing has been coded with community change. Whereas when I look at a different document, let's just see, maybe Maria and Daniel's interview, if I double click here, it will take me to the interview and again highlight the parts that have been coded. Okay, so everything is interconnected. You can find different options of how you can visualize your coding. Maybe another thing that you might find interesting is the explore diagram. So if I just do a right click, again, I'm sticking with the community change example, and go to visualize an explore diagram. Let's see how this one will look like. An explore diagram, the more work you do in NVivo, the busier this will look. But basically an explore diagram, let me just switch this off. Now it looks a bit better. You can start an explore diagram basically from any element that you have in NVivo. So here we have the code, the community change code, and I can see now all the files that have coding to this code, okay? And what I can do is I can actually kind of take a walk in the data. So if I think, oh, Helen's document has coding to community change, I wonder what else is going on in Helen's interview. So I can change the focus, and now I see Helen's audio file in the middle, and I see that Helen's audio file belongs to a case called Helen, and I can also see all the other codes that have coding in this document. Mentioning the word cases, I think it's time to introduce the next project item in NVivo, which is cases. Now you might be wondering, what are cases and what do we use them for? Let me just find my survey and I will explain to you. So in the survey, it's quite a good way of looking at what cases actually are. So let me just look at the form instead of the table. So for each of your survey respondents, you can actually look at each row kind of individually in this different view, which is form. And it will always show you the open-ended questions and the closed-ended questions together. And the closed-ended questions that we see here give us some information, for instance, some demographic information about the different respondents. So here we see we have a person age 52, gender female, and then she comes from the community of Williston. So the demographic information is kept with this case. And with surveys, this is quite convenient, because if you have closed-ended and open-ended questions in one survey, you import it together, all the information is already tied together for you. So the answers that we see here are already tied in the open-ended questions are already tied to the information that these answers came from a person that's female, age 52. Okay, very convenient. Where do we find this information? If I go to my organized part, we find a folder called cases, and I have some subfolders here so I can show you how this looks like. So our cases could be different things. Could be our could be our interview participants or survey respondents, but you might also have a scenario where you have different types of cases, not only individuals or people, but maybe more abstract things like places or organizations, okay? And for each case that you have, if you want to, it's not necessary, but if you want to, you can include some descriptive information. So for Barbara, if I do a right click here, I can go to the case properties and I will see that Barbara also has some demographic or information stored here. So we also learned that Barbara is from Betty, she's 42 to 49 and female. Now, of course, this information didn't appear just out of nowhere. When we want to create cases and include demographic information about our interview participants, for instance, we can, of course, classify them and create the classifications ourselves. Let me just show you. So for any type of case, you can create your own attributes that you need. So here we have a case classification that is called person, that shows you all the attributes that are collected for the different interview participants and survey respondents. It's very easy to add new attributes. Just do a right click. And this is just in a nutshell. There are different ways of how you can create your cases and include the attributes. As I said, when you bring in a survey, most of the steps are done automatically for you if the survey is imported correctly. And when you create your cases manually, you can either really fill in the information step by step manually, or there's also other ways like importing a so-called classification sheet, which could be an Excel file that you already kept outside NVivo that just helps you, bring in all the demographic information about your cases. But why would you want to do that? Why is it maybe necessary or useful for your particular project to include information like gender, age group, or the community that people live in? In NVivo, this can help you to compare groups. It can help you compare cases, and it can also help you just to, have a more focused view on the, on all the chaos that might be going on in your in your data. So just to give you an example, with these cases and attributes created, you can run very specific queries like a Crosstab query, and I will just open one that is already stored in the project to make my life easy. So here's a Crosstab query that shows us economic issues by age and gender. So let's just run this one and see how it looks like. And mind you, these types of queries like the Crosstab query is not something that you do right in the beginning. You can do a text search right in the beginning as soon as you import your first text. The Crosstab query requires a bit more work prior to that. So in a Crosstab query, you need some coding. So here they selected the codes that they are interested in: agriculture, fishing, jobs, and tourism. And then you can Crosstab against attributes or cases. And here they chose to create a Crosstab that includes the age group and gender. Let's put some color in here so maybe it's easier to see. So what this helps you with, it's not really about quantifying your qualitative data. That's not necessarily what you want to do with this. I don't no, that's not what you want to do with this. What you want to do with it is to be able to look at one group at a time and to really read into it and compare. Because we could look, if we look at this list of codes, we probably have a lot of coding for tourism, right? A lot of coded references, and we can of course read through all of these comments and kind of come up with an answer of, what everyone has to say. Or we divide our data and look at all the coding group by group. So here, for instance, we see in the age group 30 to 39, which is a smaller group, we just have 5 participants from this group. We also have no comments about tourism. So let's move on to the next group. Okay, looking a bit better, age group 40 to 49 with 24 participants, we at least have 1 comment from a female participant, and so on. I think you get the idea. Same for fishing and aquaculture in the age 50 to 59 seems to be a hot topic. We have to be careful when we look at the numbers. So actually, this number here, the 14, in our case, means that 14 out of the 15 female participants from this age group have said something about fishing and aquaculture. I can also instead look at the coding references. So how many comments did they make in total? And I see 15 comments from 14 people. And I can, of course, always double click into the cell to then review, okay, what is it that people from this age group and gender had to say? And then I can read through it, code on. That's also always something that you can do if you are reviewing coding and you find something that also falls into another category, or you want to add an annotation or what it is. You can always code on, create more annotations, etc. Okay, but looking at the time, I think I will make a stop right here and just see if there are any questions.
Yes, thank you for the great presentation, Marit. We have a few questions here. The first one here is about sharing. Is it possible for two persons to code the same interview without being able to see the other person's coding before afterwards?
So if you want to code together, what I would suggest is that you create the project, the NVivo project, and then create copies of it that you then send to one and the other person where there's no coding in it, so that you can code separately on your own computers. And then what you would do is to import the two projects that both of you have coded in into a project, one after the other. Of course, if that is not an option, you could also, code and then tell the other person to please not switch on the coding stripes so that they will not be able to see who has coded what. I think the safest would be to really divide or to create copies of the project file, have each participant work in their own copy and then merge it together. What's important, let me just see if I find a good example here, is that when you code, when you code, you need to be in your correct user profile. I will show you what this means. But in NVivo, if you merge the work of two people, or if you work on one project with several users, it will always be able. It will always be possible to see who has coded what. And so if I hover over this coding stripe here, just to give you an example, you see that there's a little, in brackets, there's the WWS initials, which tells us that this coding has been done by Wanda. And this is crucial for if you want to compare your work with different people, because there's actually a coding comparison query that you can run that compares exactly how similar or different two or more users have coded on a document. And of course, it needs the information of who coded what. So to see which user profile you are using, you can go to File and Options, which are the general settings of your application. And here you can always type in your name and initials. Mind you, this is not the same as the My NVivo profile. It has nothing to do with it. This is just the initials that the NVivo will use to, track who did what. And you need this if you want to code in a team. Anything else?
Yeah, thank you. You also answered the part 2 of this question, merging and comparing different coding, different person. That's quite interesting question here. Is NVivo able to pick up geolocation on photos, images? The metadata?
Not automatically. Actually, you know what? I don't think so, but I will research it and I will put it in the answers, in the written answers, because otherwise I will probably say something that is incorrect. No, but what you can do, maybe to give some sort of an answer, what you can do for any document that you have, and for pictures specifically, this might be very useful, is to create classifications that help you describe what we are seeing. So here, for these pictures, they have actually created something that they called Image General or Image GIS. Let me just show you. So similar to what we've seen with the case classifications, you can describe your pictures as well, so or any other type of data that needs some more description. So here for the classification called Image General, they included information about the source, township, dates taken, and so on and so forth. So yeah, maybe this would be a way or kind of a workaround to include like information like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like NVivo should be able to pick up the metadata, the geolocation and stuff.
Yeah, if you have it available, you should be able to also include it in forms of these file classifications. Yes.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more. Is it possible to transcribe directly in NVivo, or do we always have to do it in Word, for instance, and then import it to NVivo?
Yeah, no, you can definitely transcribe directly in NVivo. Let me just see. I will open an audio file here. So in NVivo, you can, if you have the audio file or the video file imported into NVivo, and then you can also transcribe in NVivo directly. There are different methods to it, and it takes a little bit of practice, but in a nutshell, what you would need to do is you need the audio file, and then you can go into edit mode, and once you are in edit mode, you can already see there are different play modes that you can use, where you can either simply play the document or go in transcribe mode, and transcribe mode is the one that you would need. There are a few tools that you can use to help you with transcribing. You can adjust the play speed. You can also, when you are just in play mode, decide to just play a specific row over and over again in a loop, so that you can really have time to transcribe it. And as you can see here, this is maybe not such a good example, because this is not a verbatim transcript. This is more like a general description of what happens each minute. But basically, the idea is, of course, that you create these rows, which could be whenever there's a speaker break, you know, create a new row, and then row by row, you can go on and transcribe the text that you find there. And yeah, this part is included in the software. And if you don't want to do it manually, of course, you can always send your files, your audio and video files, to NVivo Transcription and let them transcribe there, do the editing there, and then bring them back into NVivo. But you would need, of course, access to the transcription module.
Yeah, thank you, Marit. There also was a question about the NVivo transcription, if it's in Norwegian. Can you please show which languages it's?
Yeah. Let me just pull up the slide here. So these are the languages that are currently supported. Norwegian is definitely one of them. We also did some testing just recently with Swedish, for instance, which seemed to be working quite fine. I will say it always depends on the quality of the audio, and of course, if you have files with very heavy accents, maybe the automatic transcription might not pick them up like instantly or correctly. It's a good idea to test the software. You can always sign up for a 15-minute free trial to just see if the results are, if you like the results. Another thing that it can improve the results is using a dictionary. So in the NVivo transcription platform, you have the option to create a transcript for your specific a dictionary for your specific interview. So if you have the first interview transcribed and you see, there are certain words that the software out of some reason always picks up incorrectly or transcribes in a way that is not desired, you can add them to a dictionary, so that in the next round where you transcribe the next interview, you can apply the dictionary and the results should already be better than in the first round. But I really recommend just testing it out and seeing if you like it for the type of data that you have.
Great, thank you. And just a short one at the end. I see the timer is running out. If you can please answer, I think this should be short. If you can import reference from EndNote, and also please mention our next webinar, Citavi. And also, if you could please just show upcoming courses for NVivo.
Yeah. So I think, wait a second. Yeah, so I have some upcoming courses. Actually, there will be a training just next week, and there's still time to sign up for it. So I think until Friday, the deadline is Friday. So if you want to learn more about NVivo, just go ahead and sign up for the training on 3rd and 4th of May. Or then there will also be another one at the end of May, 1st of June. That was that, and then I think there was a question about the importing from EndNote. Oops, why is everything gray? I'm not quite sure. Okay, let me just see. Well, I think NVivo just decided to now stop working. Maybe this is a sign. But yes, you can import sources from EndNote or Citavi. I believe we still have a webinar on demand on our Zendesk. Maybe there's a possibility to send the link to that also, or just put it in the chat after the session. But yeah. Right
Great,
now, everything is
Marit,
grayed out,
I will
but
include
it's possible.
that link in the resources I send everyone next week when we're ready with the recordings. Thanks again for the great presentation, Marit. I will have to switch to the next webinar, sorry. So okay. Have a nice day.
Thank you, you too.